All right, everybody, welcome to this later evening live stream. I'm here with my fearless colleague, Igor Kryliak, who did not have time to get back to his house before we went live to talk about what is probably one of the most significant changes and developments for the Alberta PNP, which became the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program, which now we fondly recognizes the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. And I'll be honest, for many years, you guys, I truly did believe that Alberta had an advantage. Why? Because it wasn't complicated to qualify through the Alberta Opportunity Stream. But all of that has now changed. And no longer is it a simple process of, do I meet the eligibility for the Alberta Opportunity Stream or the Rural Renewal Stream or the Accelerated Tech Pathway, and the list goes on. Now it's essentially submit an expression of interest, just like British Columbia, like Saskatchewan's program, like Ontario, and do this. Keep your fingers crossed. All right, Igor, welcome. Where are you at, given the fact you weren't able to make it back to your house?
Yeah, long story short, there was a Canadian Immigration Lawyers Association meeting today in downtown Calgary, and I've attended the meeting. So got to meet a lot of our colleagues, got to have some wonderful chats about interesting topics, including the topics of business and economic development in Alberta and how immigration impacts economic landscape in our province. So it was a wonderful meeting. So thank you a lot for Sela, if someone is watching us from Sela. So I couldn't make it home after the end of the meeting. So I'm stuck here in downtown Calgary. So I will probably share the views a little bit with our fellow viewers. So this is the promenade right next to the Bow River. So that's where a lot of people go to spend their free time in the evening after work. And essentially, that's the place that many people see on the pictures, dreaming about coming to Alberta. And when they get here, they really enjoy spending their time just walking, breathing the fresh air, observing the Bow River. And yeah, like that's a wonderful place to actually host this live stream today with you, Mark, because I just look at all of those people who walk on the streets, and I understand that I was one of them 4 years ago, but I was lucky to immigrate through the federal immigration program. Now, many of those people who cross and pass me on the streets over here, they don't have that privilege of immigrating to the federal immigration programs. And the only option for them was the Alberta Opportunity Stream. Now, with the new changes, their chances of staying in Canada may be either better or maybe much worse. So that's probably what we will be talking about today in detail. So really glad to be connected from this beautiful place in here in downtown Calgary.
Excellent. Thank you, Igor. Now, I want to just mention to other people, I was actually going to be at that Sela festivity, but unfortunately for me, well, not unfortunately, I forgot that I have a job in my church to run the activities for the young 8 to 11-year-old boys. And so tonight we actually planned a treasure hunt. And I know this is completely off topic, but hey, I don't care. This is what we're doing. So I'll show you here. This is what we created. If it will appear on the screen, here we go. So this is the treasure chest, and I didn't show you what was inside, which was a bunch of these gold coins that were filled with chocolate. These young little kids, boy, they had a heck of a time. We used compasses, and we followed a pre-designed treasure map, complete with scrolls and all these kinds of things. And it was a lot of fun with the young little kids. So I didn't make it up to Calgary, but in all honesty, it gave me a little bit more time to soak in everything that has been going on with the program. And I know that there's been lots of people who've chimed in, who have had thoughts on what this means for immigration in Alberta. Igor and I are hopefully going to be able to decipher some of this information. I was able to attend a meeting today that I can't really talk too much about regarding this new system that's going to be rolled out. but I did have permission to share a few things that I learned and try to dispel some of the myths associated with it. So welcome everybody that's tuning in, wherever you're tuning in from. Please post in the comments where you are listening from, because we would love to see how far this is reaching. I'm curious to know how many people outside of the province of Alberta are watching what's happening here, and how many are really located here in Alberta that this will have direct impact to. So go ahead, post your questions. We'll definitely jump in. I welcome your thoughts. I welcome, everybody's had a chance about a day to look now at the actual point system. And in my discussions with some of the government officials earlier today, I brought up some of the comments that you folks have mentioned. And I can see here we've got a number of people all chiming in, and guess where they're in, Igor? We've got
hopefully not on the promenade.
Yeah, maybe they're right behind you. They're going to poke their head in and say hello. We do have Petra is in BC. We've got Zahir in Edmonton. Taj, of course, in Grand Prairie. And we'll definitely, Giselle says, good evening. I'm so far from Igor, downtown Calgary. Well, Igor is downtown Calgary. He sure is. We've got Marcus in Spruce Grove. We do have Alexander who's tuning in from Toronto, and Hamal, who's also in Ontario. Terex in Calgary. Sumit's Fort Saskatchewan. Shalia's is in Calgary. We've got Batman. He's tuning in. As always, we always have to have our superheroes make an appearance. Watching from Dallas, Texas. We do have, we've got Ejneb, who is Romero, who's tuning in from the Philippines. Nash is in Red Deer. Excellent. Harlow's in Hinton. This is great. We got a really, really good group of people. Jordan's in Edmonton. Kuldeep Kaur is West Tasquin. Let's see. Yes, Mark from the Philippines, and Aliyah is up in Grand Prairie. We got multiple people from Grand Prairie. All right. So lots of Isaac's over in Brampton, and John Lynn's Calgary. Okay, I'm going to need to stop. There's so many people watching live here. But we do have Lourdes who's tuning in from Peru. Awesome to have you. It's so great to be here and just try to share a little bit of information. Now, I want your feedback on what you think and how you feel about these changes now that we've had about 24 hours or so to kind of digest them. In our meeting today, Igor and I are going to cover a little bit about the overview of the AIMP changes. Then we're going to talk about the new expression of interest system, the key points. We're going to hit on the points grid, which I know you guys are curious about. What's going on here? I better get Igor in here. I've got a body double here working. Just give me a second. We'll pull Igor in on here. Yes, we need him here. I was setting this up before he joined, and then he just got in like 2 minutes before we went live. Okay, so we're going to talk about the points grid. We're going to talk about some of the key differences from the previous system. And this is important because some people are asking, why do they, not give any more points for people that have higher than a CLB 6? Why are people with more work experience, all counted the same once you hit 12 months? And this all ties back to the previous system. And I'll explain that as we go forward. Because I asked these questions to the officials myself. We'll take a detailed look at the specific streams because the streams haven't disappeared. Just whether or not you're going to get to apply to them, that's what's changed. We're going to talk about essential tips. Obviously, once we give you the foundation, then we're going to talk about some essential tips that you guys need to understand when you're doing this. And then obviously, what does this mean for the future? What do you have to take into consideration? What are the challenges you're going to face right now? Then obviously future outlook predictions, and then we'll wrap it up with a conclusion and Q&A. So this is kind of the roadmap of what we're going to be talking about today. So as an overview of the AIMP changes, I want to flip over here. I should have Igor here with me. Yes, he is. Okay, and let's adjust the screen so it fits just a little bit better. I want to point out something that Igor worked his little tail off here, our immigration blog. And if you look here, I did one on the LMIA changes about 4 or 5 days ago. But right here, Igor did a very comprehensive blog post on all of this. He gave a really, really good breakdown of how this all played out. And so I encourage you to go check out this detailed blog post that Igor put together. And there's just a ton of information. Just just a whack. You can see it's a nice, long, fulsome blog post with just about everything that you could ever imagine. So go check that out. That'll form a foundation of what we're talking about today. But just to kick things off, Igor, so give the viewers, because I know you're only going to be here with me for a little bit, give them a little bit, a little bit of a history about these changes and how they came about.
Yeah, so essentially we've seen an evolution of the Alberta Opportunity Stream. And we are the West, so for those people who are the fans of the cowboy movies, this is the wild, wild West. And things were wild in here. So everyone could apply for the provincial nomination program in Alberta. There was pretty much no restrictions, right? So if you meet the minimum eligibility criteria, submit your application, and then your application will be processed. Yes, the AUS, for example, had a disclaimer saying that the submission of the application does not guarantee that the province will process it. It's just mere expression of interest. So province was under no obligation to do anything with your application, even if you paid the fee. And so essentially, it was possible that you could submit an application and it would be pending for months and months and you would not hear back. But in practice, did we hear about stories of people who submitted their application and waited for years? Probably no, at least not in our firm. So essentially, the idea was, as long as you meet the criteria, submit an application, we're going to process it. Then we had the war in Ukraine. A lot of Ukrainians came over. When many of them started considering, where do they go? Do they go to Alberta? Do they go to Toronto or Vancouver? And those were the same questions that every other immigrant would pose before them, right? Like, where do they go to study? Would they go to Toronto, where the ONP is just ridiculous? The competition is crazy. The requirements for the employer are just over the top. Would they go to the British Columbia, where the employer must register with the province? And the restrictions are even harder than in Alberta right now. So Alberta was this wild west where people would go just to benefit from this most liberal provincial nominee program, even though we are a conservative province. And essentially, the province had to fix something. So they had this huge influx of the applications, and they understood that they could not process everyone. The province gets only a certain number of nominations that they can issue per year, and the federal government determines how many nominations the province can extend in a year. And so with the huge spike in the population, so right now just Calgary alone is 1.6 million people. So that's the fourth largest city in Canada. 39% of Calgary population identify themselves as minorities. So that's just the statistic that I'm pulling in from today's meeting in CELA, right, where we talked about economic development in Alberta. And essentially, Alberta figured out, like, Alberta is not made of rubber, right? It cannot shrink and extend indefinitely. And so they had to figure out a way how to restrict those people who could submit their applications. So they decided to put a pause on the intake in February. And then they announced that starting June, they will be conducting only certain they will be taking in only a certain number of the applications. I think it's about 430 applications for the Alberta Opportunity Stream. And they would open the intake just 1 day in a month. Essentially, what that created was the race to file system. So you have thousands and tens of thousands of people sitting on the Alberta Opportunity website all at once, clicking the refresh button, and all crashing the website at once. And the website would be dead for hours and hours. Some people would get in and were lucky to submit their application. But essentially, it was just a debacle, right? We wrote a whole blog post talking about the technical challenges and the disadvantages of this race to file system. And people felt that the system is not fair. Some applicants would have 10 computers trying to get in. Some people would not have access to reliable internet. It was not fair. And the province also understood it. They had consultations with lawyers. They had consultations with stakeholders. And they had to fix it. And then they decided to pause the intake again. And they announced that
I'll jump in here, Igor. I'll jump in here quick. So over the years, I've been heavily involved with the Canadian Bar Association. And one of the things that we do is we advocate on behalf of all of you. We, it's all a volunteer kind of role. I served on the South Alberta section CBA. I was the chair for the South Alberta section, and I got involved in the national executive, and I worked my way through, and I was the national chair of the Canadian Bar Association. And much of what we did was to advocate on behalf of you. So sometimes the government will roll out programs or do things that they just don't do what the government thinks they're going to do, or they create some unfairness or injustice to a certain segment of the applicants, or they're just not it's not accomplishing the design that it was really designed to do, because they weren't aware of something that was happening on the ground, because the government officials don't see necessarily what you're experiencing on your end of, say, even the new portal that they've created. And so the expression of interest portal, so they don't know. So ultimately, a bunch of lawyers within our Canadian Bar Association were able to connect with the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program in the summer after the race to file started. And we're able to organize a meeting with them and say, hey, you need to be aware of this. People blocking spots and trying to sell them. You need to be aware of the problems with the technology that some people are experiencing. This race to file is not accomplishing what you need to do. And my recommendation to them was, you need to pause it. Lots of people are like, no, don't pause. But they needed to pause it. They needed to figure something out. And kudos to the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, because in a relatively short period of time, they whipped off a new expression of interest portal. I'd love to see IRCC turn around with the millions of dollars that they've given, to the department from our tax dollars to develop a system that is really, it's quite effective. So we'll see. You guys will all see on September 30th what it looks like. But I'm really impressed. Really impressed. So at the end of the day, we had very positive discussions with the province, and they agreed to pause it. And I said to them, look, you're not reinventing the wheel here. British Columbia and Ontario and other provinces have consistently had more people, that want to apply than there are spots. And so the only fair way to do it is through some form of point system that targets individuals that the province really needs, at least the ones that they feel are a priority. And this is the one thing that we will get to in just a little bit. So stay tuned, and I will answer why the grid is the way it is, when if you just look at it, it doesn't make sense. So yes. So once again, the province decided, okay, we're going to pause it. We're going to make changes. So flipping it back to you, Igor. So after the race to file, then we're kind of in this
August
world.
7th comes. Yeah, August 7th comes. And on August 7th, they announced that from now on, the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, as we know it, will cease to exist, at least for some time. So they will pause all intakes for at least until September 30th. And so as we approach September 30th, obviously more details become known. And on September 23rd, just yesterday, Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, released their points grid system breakdown. And they explained how they will assign points to all candidates. And Mark, you actually raised a really important aspect here, that with the previous versions of the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, specifically Alberta Opportunity Stream, the province would get thousands of applications from people working in industries or occupations that the province was not really looking for. It sort of resembled what you had with the express entry system, when as long as you hit the minimum requirements, you can submit an application, right? But for the express entry stream, for the express entry program, express entry system-based programs, you had to be working in a skilled occupation. So that was the minimum requirement for your job. Here in Alberta, as long as you don't work on the list of ineligible occupations, you could apply. And so that created a massive problem for the province. And with this rollout of the new expression of interest, they solve this problem. Like, it's not on the surface, but they actually do. Essentially, they will now be in control of who they want to see in the pool of applicants. And they will have the pool of candidates and the pool of applicants. So don't confuse those two things. Yes. So Mark, I will probably then give the floor back to you, because you will be leading the agenda. I'm just...
No, that's fine, Igor. Thank you. That's exactly where we're at. So yeah, so in my meeting earlier today, we talked about some of these issues. And so those of you who have been watching were able to see that on the government website, on their updates page, they gave a very, very quick overview of what was to come. Not a lot of detail, but enough at least to hit the high points. And the high points is the worker expression of interest points grid. And if you look here, you'll see that there's no fee, obviously, for submitting an expression of interest. So anybody can submit whatever they want. And one thing I want to point out that people sometimes don't understand, candidates will self-declare information about themselves. When you complete this, when you complete and you go into the new online worker expression of interest form in the portal, and I'll just point out here just at the end, if you have not yet, and this is, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, we're not keeping any secrets, you want to make sure that you have your alberta.ca account set up. But as you go through this, you will see that there is no purpose and really no advantage to racing as fast as you can to get your expression of interest in. So we know that they're going to allow a number of intakes, and we read about this a little bit later. You can see here, no rush to submit. They likely won't conduct their first pool until mid or late October. If you go and you take a look at this closer, you can kind of figure out what might be coming for October. It's not rocket science. Some of if you look at the allocations, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, but whatever. Sometimes things just, one thing flows into another. But some people are asking, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to do an Alberta opportunity stream? Are they going to do other areas? Like which one is going to be the first one that they announce? And so if you look at this and you look at the number of spots, total number of nominations issued, okay? So we know for the Alberta Opportunity Stream, they've already issued over 4,000. They have the availability of about 5,393. If you go down and you see here how many are actually unprocessed, so still in the queue, we have 2,455. So what does that mean? That means that they already have enough before they even start to fill the AOS stream. So those of you who are thinking, okay, we're going to have, these big streams and draws and we're going to be raring to go. Well, don't hold your breath too quickly because it's unlikely they're going to do an AOS right away. I suspect that they're probably going to look to one of the other streams. If you look at tourism and hospitality stream, okay? How many applications are in the queue? Do you guys see that? 8 as of like 2 months ago. I guess, yeah, over 2 months ago, July 9, 2024. That's the date that that's the date that people were submitting applications. So basically this is almost in real time. So 8. And if you go back up here and you can see tourism and hospitality, there's 392 that have already been processed. So for this year, it sure looks like there's room for this one, right? And if you look at the rural renewal stream, you can see there's 1,394 processed. They only have 1,900. And if you scroll down here, you can see there's well over that many already in the pool. So what I'm trying to get at with all of this is that they will start their rounds for sure. I'll just jump back to the main announcement here. They will start this, but I suspect it's probably going to start with the streams where they have not filled their quotas. So watch for that. So yes, get your expression of interest in quickly, like do it, but it's not a race. So do it right. And the other thing, candidates will self-declare information about themselves. What does that mean? Well, you guys know the expression of interest, and I'll just jump over here. You know that the express entry process, when you create your profile, you actually have to have a language number associate, like details about the language tests. You need to have your educational credential assessments, the numbers, the dates, all those things. And if you don't have them, you're not going to be able to submit. Well, I can tell you guys that the expression of interest system right now, we will see how it rolls out. But when they say self-declare information, it's possible that people could put in fake information and get an expression of interest. But my goodness, you better be able to support everything that you put in there. The province of Alberta has much more time to look at these applications than IRCC. And if you put anything in your expression of interest, and I'll jump back here, that isn't true, in your attempt to self-declare, let's say, for example, Igor, I'll give an example for people who are watching. Let's say you have not yet had a chance to write your language test, but you want to get your application in right away on September 30th when it opens up. So you say, well, I only need, I'll just jump all over the place here, why not? I only need, for example, with my language, I only need a 6 CLB 6 or higher. That's it. I know I'm going to score higher than that. Or someone, for instance, who has a language test that's expired. You do not want to just put, yeah, I've got a 6. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't care. They don't care if it's any higher than this. They don't. All they care is that it's 6 or higher. I'll explain in a little bit why that is. But ultimately, the thing to remember here is that the province has a lot of time to look at this. And if they look like you're maybe not doing things properly, or you're just putting down a CLB 6 and then writing the test quick and hoping you can catch it up, do not do that. They will see, Mark, they will identify, and they'll shut you down. Yeah.
It's a little bit easier to guess your scores on your language test, but it's a little more complicated to guess the language test report form number. So essentially, we've seen this in express entry applications with clients would put a fake test report number just to be able to create a profile. And then the officer at the EAPR stage would ask for that original test report form, and the applicant would not be able to produce that. So the officer would rightfully suspect that the applicant misrepresented. And you just don't want to come up with fake information, because that would be misrepresentation with all the consequences that I don't even want to talk about here, just to not ruin the good atmosphere of this live stream.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, Igor. And what I want people to understand is the expression of interest, like whatever you put in there, you're going to have to support it with documentation. And one thing I know is that they went as quickly as they could to generate something so that they could keep the applications coming. So is this expression of interest portal, is it a finished product? No. Okay, it's kind of one of those MVPs, minimum viable product. And as they're doing all they can to kind of get it rolled out, which I'm really impressed with how well they did, really, compared to the debacle of IRCC. Like, I think about the H-1B open work permit holder application process. Oh my goodness, what a disaster. Those of you who went through that or were involved in it, it was just a mess, but I was really impressed. Excuse me. So it may be that they don't even ask for numbers. It may be, I don't know. And, but the reality is, because they don't really care. And if you think, Igor, in the other applications for AOS, they didn't ask for actual numbers, I don't think. I think all they asked was if you had it and then you uploaded it as a part of your application. You can maybe think, but I'm not sure if they even asked, like IRCC does, for the actual form number. I think it was just, have you written a language test? And I think basically what I got from my meeting today, and obviously none of the confidential stuff that was shown, like will I talk about, but one of the messages that they did get across is that it's possible people could enter answers in that would otherwise make them ineligible for programs, but it wouldn't stop them from completing, at this stage anyways, the entire expression of interest and submitting it. And it was interesting because one of the things that people are so fixated, and I know people already have questions, and I'll answer this indirectly, but if you look at the point system right here, many of the other provinces, it's live or die by these points. And whoever has the highest point threshold is basically they're the ones that are going to succeed. But one of the things that was made abundantly clear to me is that the province, when they do these expression of interest, these points are only one factor in their decision to extend a notification of interest. Well, to extend like a notification of interest or an invitation, whatever they're going to call it, to a person. The points are only one factor, you guys. So you could technically have 100 points and they not nominate you or give you an invitation to apply to one of the programs. So do not get so hung up on here. And I know in their discussions, they talk about a number of things, and we'll kind of zip through this kind of quick, but that's at a very high level. That's what I want to just reiterate, is that the points are not the be all and end all. So,
yeah. And Mark, we can probably even compare this to express entry in very, it is very similar. like for the express entry, the RSCC has flexibility. Whether they want to do an FSW draw or just the PNP draw or the CC draw, they get to choose the program. They want to do just the Francophone draw, nothing stops them from doing that. So they developed the system that allows the maximum flexibility. And that's what we have with our Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. The number of points you get does not guarantee that they will issue the invitation, because what if they are looking to fill in specific occupations or industries with candidates? They may do it. Like nothing puts them under the obligation to issue invitations to every candidate who has 80 points or 90 points. They can do different programs like the hospitality stream, right? Hospitality and tourism stream, and we've talked about it. They can limit and target specific candidates from every program, and that's what they talked about. That it's one thing that you can submit an expression of interest through the AIIP, but you also have to meet the minimum eligibility requirements for the existing programs, such as the AUS or tourism hospitality stream, etc. So it's very similar to how we have things going on with express entry right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Tony and other people, like Kieran, they're all asking the same question, which is an old question. It's an old question designed for an old process, at least not for Alberta. So understand, you guys, that it's not all about this. So technically, Igor, you could have someone, and I want to reiterate that, you could have someone who was drawn under the Alberta Opportunity Stream, or I should say was eligible under the Alberta Opportunity Stream, AOS, who submitted this expression of interest, who has 100 points, who does not receive a notification of interest from the province. It is entirely possible. And if you look at the actual instructions, you can see they reiterate over and over again that workers will be scored and ranked using the grid, and candidates who successfully submit the expression of interest will be placed into the worker stream pool to be considered for selection. So the points themselves are not everything. So they'll conduct ongoing draws from the pool for specific worker streams and pathways, and they can absolutely indicate, well, this particular industry within AOS is what we're focusing on this draw. So if you are a healthcare worker, although there's a healthcare stream, I'm just using that as an example, and you are through AOS, well, we're only drawing people in this particular industry. So they have the ability to create subcategories within AOS to target the people that they most feel are needed for the province. And you can see the AAIP will select and invite candidates from the worker stream pool based on the candidate's EOI score rankings. Do you see? And everybody's stuck on that. They're like, this is it, the rankings. But this is something that people don't understand. And provincial labor market needs and priorities. This blows everything open. Just because they can literally target any person that they want. They do not restrict themselves. But what they do by an expression of interest is allow themselves to have a measure to, at the first instance, compare one candidate to another. And then from there, they look at their occupation, all these other little details, the industry they're working in. What does the province really need right now? So understand that, a number of factors. Let's keep looking at this quickly. Available AAIP nominations. Well, if they don't have any more space, that's a factor. Then they'll move to another stream. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if hotel and hospitality, they've got room there, right? And you can see application levels. So where they're at in terms of the processing and what they have in the queue. And then of course, individuals, they'll receive the ITA, an invitation by email, in the same way that people do through the express entry streams. So if you're wondering, well, how is this going to play out? Well, exactly similar to the express entry stream process, where if they give you a notification of interest, and the only difference is, in this case, you're submitting your expression of interest, where with the express entry streams, they're passive. You submit your profile to the express entry pool, and then the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, if they like you, they send you a notification of interest directly to your You get a notification through IRCC's portal, and then you have a certain time period to respond. And it'll be very, very similar, a very similar process. And you can
Mark,
see here, yeah.
I will
You're
have to
checking
excuse
out, are you?
myself. My
Igor's going
battery
to
is
get
about to
mugged,
die.
is what he's going to do. They're going to mug him.
Yeah, so it's getting a little late. My
It
battery
is.
is about to die, but it was a pleasure to connect with everyone and discuss this important topic. Like I invite everyone just to go to our website and check out the blog post. It's
Yep.
really informative. We will do another video talking in detail about the
Yep.
expression of interest system. So Mark, I will leave, and I will leave
Sounds
you
good,
the one
Igor.
leading the live. So
Yep.
thank you everyone, and I'll see you later.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
No problem. Take care. All right, we'll let Igor slip away. So basically what I'm just trying to understand is that it's not as rigid as you think. So when you submit an expression of interest, they look at a number of different factors. Now, built into the points grid, which is probably as good a time as any to slide over here and to actually look at it. I'll just take Igor and we'll just drop him right off of here. When you're actually looking at the point grid here, I'll expand myself here, there. When you're looking at the point grid, you will see that, yes, there are a number of factors that they look at and they assign points to them. But if you look at the qualifications for the programs, that's still their underlying rationale. They still feel that once a person meets the eligibility threshold for most of the programs, which is often 1 year of Canadian work experience, then they don't really care. To them and for their purposes, someone who has 3 years of Canadian of work experience, let's say right in Alberta, is no necessarily better candidate for them than someone who has 12 months. And that's why when you're looking at this, if we just jump down to work experience, that's why it says 12 or more months, everybody will get the same 11 points. So, and then 6 to 11 months, what is 6 to 11? Well, there are some programs that are 6 months. If you're a postgrad work permit holder and others, then they would fall into that realm if they wanted to apply a little bit earlier. And it's interesting. One thing we don't know is if someone is at the 11-month period and they fill in the information in their expression of interest and then they keep working, does it automatically roll over to 11 like Express Entry does? Well, I have to assume that it probably does. I'm pretty confident the province of Alberta, when they develop this, it's sophisticated enough to do this, but we'll just have to see. But let's just start from the top and let's whip through this. But as we go through here, I just want to just pull up a few comments. People, the viewers and listeners have been really patient. But I want to give just a couple shout outs to some of the questions. Three Crafty Kids says, I filed under the rural program as an Outlander. Now they're mostly rejecting Outlanders. Well, and that's true. Like, because there's so many people in Canada, they can pull from individuals that are already living and working in Canada that people outside of Canada, they just don't have, like they want to take care of people in Canada first. And it's messy, guys. It's messy. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Joe says, hey, Mark and Igor, what do you expect on the first draw from this new system? I think I told you guys. I think it's probably where there's room, which is tourism, right, and hospitality. That's my bet, Jordan. That's my bet, Joe. Okay, so Jordan says, hi, I'm working with an Alberta employer on a closed work permit from the last month and have a valid express entry profile. So can I apply for this expression of interest? Please clarify. Okay, that's a great segue. So let's go back and let's just take a look at some of the factors that they look at. So when you're submitting your expression of interest, there really isn't barriers to submitting it that I'm aware of. When you're going to submit it, you're going to be able to answer the questions. And if we look specifically at work experience in Alberta, there's an option here, less than 6 months, which would be you if you just started. If you're currently employed in Alberta, and it says it includes all experience accumulated in Canada and abroad, so total work experience, if you have less than 6 months or 6 to 11 months or 12 months or more, and this is for, remember, this here is work experience that's included in Canada and abroad. So you can, that totals, it's kind of like a duplication. You can have a maximum of 11 points. Well, if you've never worked anywhere but in Canada, then you could get 3 points for that. Work experience in Canada, it includes both experience in Alberta and other provinces or territories in Canada, not Alberta. I guess they're just feeling like they have to explain that twice. and award higher points between the two scores. So they will look at this collectively. You can get a maximum of 21 points total. And you can see here, 6 months or more work experience in Alberta will give you 10 points. So it'll give you the maximum points. 6 months or more work experience in another province or territory, not Alberta, is not as valuable. Because if you worked in Alberta and you've got at least 6 months, it's more likely you're going to stick around than someone who just parachutes in, gets the expression of interest in, gets a notification, like an invitation to apply, and then they get their nomination and then take off back to Ontario, right, from where they came. But there's a number of factors that kick in when they're doing these assessments. But these are just some of the points that are awarded to individuals to try to determine if they have the basic information needed to be able to be considered realistically for nomination. Let's just start and let's just go through this. I've been jumping around a little bit. So you can see education here. They do distinguish between doctoral degree and master's degree, okay? And then it says location of highest level of education completed in Canada. So if you have Canadian education, and this is overall education, so it doesn't really distinguish here, but if it's completed in Alberta, you're going to get bonus points, which makes sense. Once again, work experience or any experience in Alberta is going to be valued more than just general Canadian experience. And understand, you guys, that these few little differentiations, these difference in 4 points could make all the difference for individuals when it comes down to notifications of interest. It's possible, but remember, Alberta is not bound just to these points. Remember that. Okay, language, you can see, once again, we talked about this. Well, the minimum, some programs allow up to a 4, like as low as a 4. Well, all they care about, okay, they're based on the lowest score for all 4 language competencies on the test taken. So what it means is if you have a 4 in writing and you have a 9 in everything else, well, then you're going to have to put 4 right here as the threshold, because all they're asking for is the one lowest score of all the 4 things that you've taken. Interesting, hey? It's kind of interesting, but that's what they're doing here. They'll score for both English and French and award the higher points between the 2 scores. So if you have both of them, they'll use whichever is higher as kind of the principle. And then as you go through here, you'll see if you do speak both, you get bonus points once again. So as long as you have at least an NCLC or a CLB4 or higher in both of them, you're going to get a bonus 3 points. And those little points make a difference. And CLB4 is not too hard. So what do we tell people over and over? The days of the golden ages I described before, Francophone immigration, are still here, alive and well. And even for the province of Alberta, and I think they've all received marching orders from the feds that they have to incorporate something that targets Francophone applicants. Individuals who are going even to Alberta who speak French have a leg up over people that just speak English, even in Alberta. All right. Work experience, like we talked about, once you hit 12 months or more, and this is it includes all experience accumulated in Canada and abroad. So this is overseas experience as well. Really, they're not giving a lot of points for someone who has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years. It comes down to, do you have the minimum? And that's good enough. However, once again, there is bonus points for work experience in Canada. So this could be double. You've got 1 year in Canada. Well, you get points for here, 11 points, and 6 or more. If it's in Alberta, then you can get the other 10 points. If it's outside, then you're just going to get the 6. Okay, I think you guys get that. We don't need to spend a lot of time. Interesting here, isn't it? 18 to 20, 3 points. 21 to 34 is 5 points. So this is now the sweet spot for Alberta, unlike express entry, where it caps at 29, then you start losing points. Here, it's 34. And then it's not really a big loss. So 49, you get 4. And hey, look at this, you guys. Even me, old man Mark, who's turning 52 in 1 week, I would still get points. Oh, I love my province. Isn't that nice? Okay, family connection. People were wondering for a long time, how do they even treat family connection? Why do they even ask or care? We never hear about family draws. Well, it is a factor. And if you have a family member who lives in Alberta, that's a big deal because there's more likely that you would then stay in Alberta yourself. And so there's 8 whopping points. Do you see this? 8 points that is attributed if you have a family member living in Alberta who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident 18 years of age. Now, remember, it is restricted to a parent, a grandparent, a child, a grandchild, sibling, but it goes out there. It goes out. An uncle, an aunt, a niece, or even a nephew. Now, it doesn't have cousin on there, you guys. So all of my good friends from India, whose every member of their community is their cousin, that doesn't count here. So cousins are too far. But your cousin's parents, who are siblings to your parents, your parents do count. So niece, nephew, uncle, aunt, sibling, and the rest, 8 points. It's a big deal. Okay, now, guys, these economic factors are important. The whole underlying principle behind the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program and all the PNPs is that each candidate must demonstrate the ability to economically establish themselves in that province. So how do they determine that? Well, Alberta is all about work permits. And yes, you guys, yes, maintained status is still a thing. It's not disappearing. Now, Alberta has agreed to participate with the feds in that narrow little program for people who were, who fall under that exemption where, they'll agree to issue them a work permit. But aside from that narrow exemption, they still expect you to maintain a valid work permit. So keep that in mind. That hasn't changed. And as you look here, so a job offer for permanent full-time employment in Alberta could be a maximum of 10 points. And those points can come from 6 points here or up to 5 or more right here with the job offer. And you can see there's other regulated occupation that's different. So we stay focused on this chart here. So 10 points you can see for a permanent full-time job offer in Alberta, and then 6 points if the job offer is to work. And I should say, let me rephrase this. So there's a maximum of 31 points, maximum total points of 16 for the job offers, which are this right here, and then another 5 for the location. So just to break this down, Alberta is big on rural. So if you live outside of Edmonton and Calgary, and you can see it's right down here, Calgary Census Metropolitan Area, Edmonton, then you are not getting any points for your location. But if you're outside of those areas, then you can get up to 5 points. And a rural renewal stream designated community or an other Alberta community that's outside of Edmonton and Calgary essentially can get the 5 points. For everywhere else, you can get a bonus 5 points. And then if an individual has a job offer, this 10 points right here, there's not a lot of explanation, but this, you guys, is not LMIA based. So if you have just a regular open work permit and there's an employer that supports you, it does not look on the surface. Let's say you're on a spousal open work permit, or you're on a post-grad work permit from a different province. Right now, we don't see any restrictions on claiming those 10 points for a job offer from the company. And once again, that's not an LMIA-based job offer. This is a big deal. Before, there were some limited exceptions to job offers, but ultimately, for open work permit holders with job offers, there were limited exceptions, but generally it was employer-specific work permits. So we'll see how this plays out. We don't have 100% confirmation, but it sure looks like you could get those maximum, 10 points if your employer is willing to do their part and support you. Okay, we went through this. We're just about done, guys. Last, job offer in a regulated occupation. Some people are confused about this. Many professional occupations and designated occupations and trades are regulated in Alberta. And if you have trade certification or a professional designation, like you're a nurse or you are a welder, then you can get an extra 10 points. All right. So, yeah. And it's basically, it says only those who have an Alberta job offer in a regulated occupation and who meet the requirements set out by the professional body or the apprenticeship and industry training. That's what AIT stands for Alberta. Okay. So we don't need to really pay too much attention about the other stuff here. There will definitely be, as you're filling out your profile and submitting your expression of interest, you will need to understand the primary line of business and understand the NAICS code, which is different than NOC, and select your own NOC. But at this stage, this is kind of a breakdown of the points. So if we flip back here, I'll just remove Igor from here. So we've talked about, just to recap everybody, we talked about a little bit of an overview of the changes. We've talked about the new expression of interest system. Remember, there's no fee and there's no rush to submit it on September 30th. Take your time, make sure you get it right. One thing I will point out that some people won't yet be aware of is that unlike express entry, you will not have the ability to edit or modify your expression of interest. You actually have to decline it or remove it, delete it, whatever they call it in the portal, and then resubmit a new one if you are making changes. All right, and that maybe is a hint that maybe it won't automatically update. Hard to know for certain. I guess we'll find out. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Let's get to some more questions. You can see Shalias here says, hi, Mark and Igor. Any idea what will be the passing points to be able to get an ITA on September 30th? Do you think there will be a queue again upon signing in your account? Thanks. No queues. No race to file. Make sure you've got your Alberta account. And for those who are wondering, what is the Alberta account? If we flip back here, just go to the main. This is the Alberta Advantage updates page. This is where we have a little bit of a general overview of the details of the new worker streams, expression of interest. You can go down here, right here, and this is where you will click on your Alberta account. You'll go here if you have not already done so, and you will register for one of these. It should only take about 10 minutes to do this, and realistically, it's probably only going to take most people, if you have all your documentation ready, about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes to submit and complete and submit your expression of interest. Okay. So remember, this right here is where you're going to get your access. You have to have that account. It's kind of like a GC key. And then from there, you'll be able to submit your expression of interest. And remember, you could be inside Canada, submit an expression of interest. Outside Canada, you could be in another province. You could be in Alberta. It's going to be pretty open to submit it. And then at the end of the day, you'll see, really that it's still pretty hyper competitive for people who are already in Alberta. All right. Okay, let's go to a couple more questions here, and then we'll jump in. And I'll jump to a quick super chat. Okay, this is kind of out, Tamgi, this is out of the kind of the area. I think this is more of an express entry. If my employer doesn't want to provide the reference letter for CEC, and if I don't have any colleagues that would provide a letter, what are the options? The onus is on you to prove it. It's simple as that, Tamga. You have an obligation to prove it. And so in my course, which I think many of you are probably aware that I have my express entry course, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to it. In that course, I have a document that I use specifically to help basically the people who've subscribed to it. Here, let me just jump back and I'll just show you quick here. So we jump over here. So if you go to, there's a link in the description, I think, for this video. It'll take you here to the landing page for the Express Entry Accelerator. And in here, I have an entire section. I'll just bring it up really quick. This is kind of the sponsor of this anyways, but I have a document, mastering your document section. And in here, it breaks down all of the sections. And this record of employment, lesson 48, is chock full. I guess I shouldn't have clicked on it. It is chock full, lesson 48, of instructions on what to do if you can't get the reference letter. So I encourage you to slide over there, but ultimately, pick the wrong one here, but ultimately, Tamga, it's gonna be tough if your employer won't give it to you. Do you have pay slips, pay stubs? Do you have bank deposits? Do you have an offer letter originally? Do you have a termination letter or a relieving letter? Do you have supervisors that are currently working for the company that would give you an affidavit? Do you have coworkers that are also willing to state what you did for the company? Those are things that you can look at, but it's not easy when you do not have an employer is willing to do that. Okay. All right. Focusing, guys, on the future, we're focusing exclusively on the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program and the expression of interest. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Any other questions? There were a whole bunch. I think we already answered Jordan's question about working with an Alberta employer on a closed work permit from last month and have a valid express entry profile. So can I apply? We talked about this before earlier. And yeah, there's nothing stopping you from submitting that expression of interest. We talked about the passing mark. And we've talked Nash. I'll bring this up for you. Nash says the expression of interest point grid makes no distinction between high skill versus low skill work. Tier 1 and Tier 5 can both count for 12 months experience, for example. That is true. So there isn't a lot of distinction. But on the back end, Alberta, the province, will look at the industry. They will look at the labor market, and they will determine based on that where the needs are for these nominations, which industries need more nominations, which need less. So although on the surface there's no restrictions, they intend to make that opening kind of funnel as wide as possible to capture as many people, because they don't want someone who would be a good fit to not be able to be considered. So they're going to have a large database of people that have expressed an interest, and obviously, that's how you start this whole process. But in the end, they will make that call. All right. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Everybody here, I'm just going through the past comments. I appreciate everybody letting me know where they're tuning in from. I love to see how broadly this is broadcast. Okay, so Ahmed says, let us know how to calculate the work experience, please, and also the cutoff points. Okay, so the work experience is just simple. It's going to be the same as it was before, minimum of 30 hours per week, full-time, paid, all that kind of stuff. It's not going to be any different than it was before for the Alberta Opportunity Stream or the other programs. Okay. As far as cutoff points, well, we will ultimately see how it plays out. But remember, the cutoff points are not the be all and end all. Like, they will look at a number of different factors. Okay, let's see here. We've got Lourdes says, hi from Peru. In the actual context, what stream pathway do you suggest for a 50-year-old people with a high level of English and LMI exempt for trade agreement to start our path to migrate? I'm going to click on right here. I don't have my sound turned up. Bear with me here. I have to click on this, which means slide over to our firm website, and anyone who has any questions or needs assistance, you can go straight to our firm website. Once you're here, it's easy. Book a consult, speak to a lawyer, whichever one works for you. And then from there, excuse me, you can have the ability to book a one-on-one meeting with one of our lawyers in the firm, Alicia, myself, Igor. We're all here to provide assistance to you. And I'm picking the wrong one again. Okay, let's keep zipping through here. Let's see, what else do we have next? Just sorting through all of the questions. Okay, here's a good one from Nash. How do you think they would decide on tie-breaking criteria, given that multiple applications achieve similar EOI scores? The tiebreaker is always going to be the other stuff. The tiebreaker is always going to be, if we flip back here, it's going to be the other factors that they're looking for, okay? So when like they said many times before, when they're going through and doing the assessments, they look at a number of things, including, yes, the score ranking, but labor market needs and priorities are big. That there is the distinction. That is going to be the difference maker in my mind. Oh, and I keep pushing the wrong one here. And I know what you're saying, Nash. Okay, well, what if they're all identical, and then they decide, you've got two people that are identical. Usually people are not Siamese twins. Usually their backgrounds are just slightly different. And I think that's ultimately how they're going to do it. But they reserve the right, even if people are identical, to choose which one they want. And that's entirely within their purview under their bilateral agreements with the feds. Okay, let's see what else is next. Puneet says, when is the law enforcement stream coming? Yeah, the law enforcement stream, that's a real strange one. That I don't know. Okay, let's see what else. We've got lots of predictions about the expression of interest. Okay, Cam says, does the program have any special work permits allowed to enter the program, like IRCC special measures issued open work permits? Are they in the program? No. Generally speaking, if you have a nomination, you can get an R204C letter, which allows you to continue working in some instances. But no, they're not just going to issue any special measures. Ultimately, people that are already working on any type of a special measure permit, whether it's QUET or otherwise, they will, they've had an opportunity and eligibility in the past, and I do not see that changing. Okay. Let's see. This individual says, would a 2-year contract job in Alberta be eligible, or does it need to be permanent? Well, at the end of the day, the employer is expressing a desire to support you with the job offer. And many people already be working for their employer. And many employers do have more temporal, like 2-year job offers. But remember, as a part of this PNP, you have an obligation to demonstrate that you can economically establish in Alberta. So the expectation would be, yeah, it might be a 2-year contract, but the expectation would be that you'd be able to extend that permit and the employer would support you. That's an interesting question. Tuna says, do you have an expectation for other provinces will review their own points, such as Ontario? I don't see that happening right now. They've been doing it for so long. They've kind of honed it down to what they feel is working. They could maybe tweak a few things here or there, but they've got a lot of flexibility within the human capital priority stream to kind of target the people that they want already. So I don't anticipate too many changes to Ontario. That's for sure. Great question, Sumit. An open work permit holder, do Alberta job offers need to be supported by LMIAs? At this stage, the answer is no. They could change in the future, but at this stage, the answer is no. Let's see what else we have. Mark says, so you don't have to pay the fee yet if you're applying through the expression of interest? That's correct. There's no fee to submit an expression of interest. And Mark, just to confirm, yes, regardless of having 2 or 3 years, it doesn't matter based on the grid. And as we indicate here, if we slide back to the grid, you can see for work experience here, once you hit 12 or more months, then you've capped out. So anything more than that, you're not going to get, you're not going to get those extra points. Well, basically you've reached the maximum number of points. Okay. Okay, here we go. Janelle says, what if I have a master's degree at my home country and I finish a bachelor's degree in Alberta? What would be my points in location? Okay, well, let's take a look. We can always sort this out. So if we go back here, so it says here the highest level of education completed. So the highest level of education completed, 12. If you have a master's degree, you're going to get 10 points here. Location of highest level of education completed in Canada? Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. In this case here, and understand this is just a grid, I would have to assume completed in another province or territory, not Alberta. I don't know. You would, if you had a bachelor's degree right here, that's 7 points, then I have to assume that the highest level of education completed in Canada, if you completed it in Alberta, let's just see where you indicated. It doesn't say, degree in Alberta, then I think you still should be able to get those points. It doesn't say, it just says the location of the highest level of education completed in Canada. So that would assume that your bachelor's degree, if you took a bachelor's, which is interesting, that you'd still get those points if it was in Alberta. Okay. We'll keep zipping here. We're just about going to wrap up here, guys. I don't want to go too late. It's already 8:37. We've been going for about an hour here. Okay, let's see what else we have. Thanu says, if I got a U.S. working experiences, the points will be added. Well, as you could see, if we go back to the point grid, and I think a lot of people's questions are going to be related to this. If we go to the work history, you can see that it includes all experience in Canada and abroad. So the answer for here is yes. It's just these extra bonus points if you have worked in Canada. All right, what's next as we zip through? Okay, Brian says, thank you. For the job offer to be valid for AOS, it must be with a closed work permit. That depends. Not all AOS job offers or work experience have to be closed work permits. Like, for example, the QUET open work permit is open and available. A postgrad work permit for individuals who have studied in Alberta, they also can count that can count that towards like that job offer. Now, here's one thing I want to point out. Okay, this is something that I could have said earlier, but these things kind of come to me. There's so much that I needed to talk about. Here's a very, very interesting aspect of this, and I'm not sure if it's stated in here or not. Let's just see here. I don't know if it is. Confirm you meet the requirements for one or more streams. Okay, let's just highlight this, okay? So we encourage you to take the following steps to prepare to submit a work or EOI. Confirm you meet eligibility requirements for one or more AAIP work streams. So a couple things I can point out. One is that you cannot submit more than one expression of interest at the same time. You can't do a worker and an entrepreneur one. It has to be only one. And if you have an old one and then you want to recreate a new one or make changes, you cancel the other one and start a new one. But here's the interesting part. And I'm going to go back here where everybody can see me. The interesting part is that ultimately you are not the one that's choosing which program you're going through. When you start off, you're going to have an ability to explain to some extent, there's always going to be an ability to decide which program you're eligible for, because that's what it says right here on the sheet. It says you need to determine, I don't want to say anything that discloses anything that would have, been under the non-disclosure agreement. But ultimately when it comes to eligibility, the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program is always going to be the one that has the final decision on which program you're nominated under. And that's always been the case. There's nothing different about that. So you're going to submit your expression of interest, and then they're going to determine where you're going to go and which one you're going to qualify through. Okay, let's see here. I'm just trying to find anything that I have not yet otherwise answered from other people. If I skip through, don't worry about that. Okay. Beza says, I have a TS 2023 open work permit. I live in Alberta and have been working here for 7 months. Can I also be included in this program? Well, you can absolutely submit an expression of interest. Okay. Taj says, do you think co-op work experience in Alberta will count? I personally don't think it will, but we'll see. I don't know if they will have the same restriction on work experience gained while studying. I don't know, but I have to assume it's probably going to maintain the same thing. Once again, Giselle says, what about who is working in a hospital? They're on a part-time, full-time. Does that mean it's not counted? I don't know what that means, part-time, full-time. 30 hours per week is kind of the minimum. Okay, Mo is from Mirzuga. Okay, Beza as well. At this stage, in terms of the expression of interest, there's going to be different points depending upon foreign work experience, Canadian work experience. Excuse me. But within each of the programs, the Alberta Opportunity Stream, there are restrictions on the kinds of work permits for that program. But other programs, like, for example, the Accelerated Tech Pathway, which if you have work experience in that category, or Rural Renewal Stream, doesn't necessarily require that you have a work permit. So that's why I can't say, no, it doesn't matter, because the expression of interest doesn't require it. You always have to look at the underlying programs, because the eligibility for those programs are the thing that's going to allow you to advance to the next step. It's not just all about scoring the highest expression of interest points under the points grid. Okay. I see lots of questions coming in. I'm trying to stay on top of them, you guys. Woo, it is warm in here. Let's see. Okay. Ibatoy says, I have a question. What about the current program? My profile is currently assigned for assessment. You're going to be grandfathered in, my friend. You're not going to have to worry about that. You'll be assessed based on the old rules. Wakoko says, how about work remotely from rural areas but has an office in Calgary? What points for me for Alberta job offer location? The employer needs to be located in those rural locations. Yeah, I don't think they're going to count someone who's living outside of Calgary in one of the bedroom communities. The company is the anchor. Okay. Look at this. Viviani, hello. It's so good for you. Thanks so much for connecting in. Welton Kelly Andradel. Okay, I'm not sure what that is, but Viviani, muito gosto de velo. Okay, we need to connect. All right, good friends, Viviani and William. I hope Guy is doing well on his mission. So proud of him. So happy for you guys. Michaela, my daughter, is actually, as you know, she's getting ready to head out next month for her mission. So excited for her. Okay, let's see here. Here's a good question. Tony says, what if I live and work in Calgary, but I have another job offer from Red Deer? Can I still get all the points? That is going to be tricky. Now, isn't clear explanation as to how that will be treated. But clearly an employer, it's really the employer's location initially when it comes to a job offer that's, not necessarily supported by, work with that employer, not until after. But job offers, remember, if you're coming in through, say, the accelerated tech pathway or rural renewal stream, if you're being considered for those, it's the location of the employer. So, okay. Pablo, anything relevant related to tech? Well, the programs are still going to be there. The expression of interest is going to be there. It's not going to change. You're just going to, the process for the accelerated tech is going to remain the same. It's just the expression of interest is going to be overlaid just like express entry is for the federal skilled worker program and CEC. Okay. Alu, I'll say a hello to you. Let's see what else we have here. I don't want to skip people, but my goodness, I'm not going to get through all your questions, you guys. So if you feel like I've skipped your question, my apologies. I am doing the best I can to try to keep it going in areas that everybody is interested in listening to. Okay, let's see. Okay, Yash says, does it apply to the express entry stream? Well, no. This actually is Alberta's programs, and express entry is it's how does it apply? You know what? I'm going to hold off on that because it's too general of a question. In some instances, just treat it as if the existing programs on the back end are going to remain substantially the same. It's just the expression of interest that's overlaid on top of them. Okay, let's see here. What else do we have? And someone asked, Lourdes says, what's the minimum points for the new expression of interest system? There isn't any minimum points. At the end of the day, when you submit it, your points will be calculated, and then you'll be ranked based on that, as well as these other factors that we talked about, industry, those kinds of things, labor market. Okay, this person, my name is, says, if someone is working in another province, can we still submit an expression of interest for Alberta? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Just like you can do for other provinces in many instances. Okay. I don't know if I can understand this, Jai. My father's brother, okay, which is your uncle, no moat. Can I get point of her wife? Guess that would be, oh man, point of her wife, of his wife? It sounds to me like you're describing your aunt, but I can't tell. Maybe you guys listening can help Jai there. It's late here. It's getting late. Okay, Frederic says, can you use a representative to submit your expression of interest? Well, yes, but all the same rules apply as they did before. So it's still your application through your portal, not the employer's portal. Kadar says, hey, Mark, does the experience during implied status is also valid or not? Well, that's interesting. If it's valid work experience and it's not, and it's authorized, maintain status counts for the purposes of counting work experience. It does, but it has to be legal. Okay. It can't be, as I had a consult with someone today, it can't be work experience that was gained under the table or without legal authorization, where your work permit expired and you're applying for a restoration. That type of work experience is not, it's not counted. Teeny says, hi, just wondering, is the current student in Alberta also allowed to submit an expression of interest? I don't see why not. Once again, points will be lacking because you won't have the Canadian education yet. You won't have Canadian work experience. But if you had work experience abroad, and you can, there's nothing stopping you from submitting it. Okay, Patel says, what about other streams? Will still remain open? Yes. This think, and with respect to some of them, this program will overlay on top of them. Let's see. Jayant says, will the new system link your express entry CRS score with new point system? No, it doesn't link in that way. Yeah, it doesn't. This is an entirely separate point calculator. Okay. Alvox says, hey, Mark, is it true that if you lodge express entry and you lodge AOS, you won't be drawn for the provincial nominee program? Not true. There's nothing, absolutely nothing stopping you from being nominated by the province of Alberta because you have an express entry profile in the pool. Nothing. I'm assuming you're just talking about express entry and you've got just a profile, because if you have an ITA and you're submitting an EAPR, well, it doesn't make sense when you're already going down that path to then go through the AOS process, which takes longer than express entry. Let's see what we have here. Mohammed Saad. Hey, hi, Mark. It's always great to see you. I joined your Facebook group in December 2017. That's worth some applause. It's been a long journey till getting an ITA under CEC. Draw on August the 24th, 2014. Thank you for being there. Hey, my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I've been at it a long time, you guys. Okay. Okay, do we get a benefit if we apply with endorsement under rural stream? Absolutely you do. As you look at the points grid, you will see when it comes to work experience, well, let's just look at this. If you look at work experience here, work experience in Alberta and other provinces. So you're getting points for generally for the work in Alberta. And then if we go down the economic factors, you can see your job offer is select Alberta rural communities or sector and selected. Okay. Endorsement letter from a designated community in the rural renewal stream. There you go. 6 points right there. See if I can highlight that. 6 points. Can't really highlight it, but I think you guys get the picture. All right. We'll try to rapid fire this a little bit more. Aliu says, say something about graduate assistantship teaching for master's students. Well, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, there's no restrictions. Like, ultimately, are you on your study permit still? Right? Are you still studying? Often that work experience doesn't count as Canadian work experience. As simple as that. Now, we don't know if there's some special rule that they roll out, but generally speaking, if you're on a study permit, not a work permit, then that work experience generally doesn't count, at least for what we've seen from the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. Okay, and then lots of people are asking, do you have a good chance? All right, let's see here. Carly, you're in Calgary. Say hello to Igor. Okay, and those of you who are asking, hey, do I have a good chance? Realistically, the best thing that you can do, I will ring the triangle. I will point you back here. Those of you guys who are saying, what is the best option for me? Connect with myself, Igor, or Alicia. You can learn all about how we represent clients and how we support you. And it's not for everyone. It's not. I'll give you an example. So I had a consult with someone a couple of days ago, I think today, Monday, I guess it was yesterday. And they said, yeah, I want to retain you. And I explained how we work with our clients. We really work with DIYers. We work with people who are willing to do their part. And then we are there to help, assist, and support. But this person said, yeah, sure, no, I'll hire you. We sent the legal service agreement. And then she came back and said, well, no, I just want to hire a representative to do my application. Well, that is not how I do it. I don't just give you a goofy form and then you fill it out and then I magically submit the application. There's too many places for error and problems. So in the case of how we represent our clients, I don't use assistants. I don't use paralegals. I work directly with you and I teach you, I show you how to complete the information. And then once you fill it in, which is no different than if you fill in my goofy little form, if I was that kind of a representative, I sit with you and painstakingly go through every single aspect of your application from the beginning all the way through the end. And our track record is pretty freaking awesome. Although it's probably about 2 months ago now, I had worked with someone to submit an Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program application. And there was an attestation form, a new one that they'd created. And it was new to me too. The client filled it out, signed it, dated it, but there was a little checkbox on that form that wasn't a mandatory field like it would be if it was online. If you didn't check the box, it wouldn't let you advance. Well, this form, which is PDF that we uploaded, had a little checkbox and they returned the application because the checkbox wasn't clicked. I thought that was pretty bloody weak, but I missed it. And so in the past, since 2019, since I've really been doing this model full time with Holthe Immigration Law, my own firm, that was the first one that I had returned. And you know what? It sucks. I gave the client all of his money back. And really, they should have realized checking the box off, but that's the level of forensic evaluation that we go through. Anyways, I'll stop talking about that. Okay, let's try to get to a few more questions here. I'm just going to jump down here just very quick. So we talked about the key differences from the previous system. detailed look at specific streams. We're probably not going to get to that today. I think we've been going a long time, and you guys can look up the differences between the streams. I don't need to get into that. Essential tips, I've been giving those all along throughout the whole presentation today, so it's probably not an issue, as well as challenges and considerations and future outlook. I've probably developed or at least talked about all of those at some point as we're answering the questions here, but let's keep going through. And then we'll wrap up here in just a little bit. We've got a good group of people watching, so I want to give you guys as much help as I can. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, let's see here. Nahuma, James says, hey, Mark, what's your success rate with identifying knocks? I'm looking to book an appointment with someone who can help me determine the correct one. Well, of all the applications I've submitted, I've never had an application refused because we selected the wrong knock. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, let's see what else here. Okay, ACSTRV says, is this for only with shortage jobs in Alberta? How about if you work as an administrator in a post-secondary? Well, ultimately, they're going to look and they're going to target certain industries as one factor they're going to look at. But there's other ones, like do you have family in Alberta? Do you have education in Alberta? All of those factors kind of play a role. And ultimately, they're going to determine where they want to issue the invitations for you to apply. But I don't think just because you're working as an administrator in a post-secondary institution that you're not going to have a shot. Okay, let's see here. Okay, here's a good question. Okay, Said Rao says, any changes in the documentation? Any changes in the documentation can we expect with this changes? Mainly employment declaration form, which introduced recently for PNP. That I'm absolutely positive is here to stay. That is a critical component because of the fraud that came into the system. And there was a lot of it. And so that form is not going away, unfortunately. That declaration, I do not see that form disappearing. Obviously, it's possible, I guess, but I personally, you're asking my opinion. I don't think it's going to disappear. I think it's going to still be there. Let's see here. Yash says, do I need a job offer from an Alberta employer to qualify for the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program streams? Well, there is, we'll just have to see, but generally speaking, employer job offers are a pretty important component. I think it would be very unlikely for you to be able to go through without the support of an employer in some form, either currently working for an employer or an employer who's willing to offer you a job offer. Yeah, I think that's unlikely. Yes, Nash, the black box remains in terms of criteria of labor market needs. Yes. Yep. Flexibility to make decisions in the best interest of the province is exactly correct. Mark, you're very welcome. Let's see here. And Antu says, thank you for the informative videos. As always, you're very welcome. I talked about Kedar, implied status. You might be able to claim some of that work experience, but if your work permit expires currently and you're on maintained status, the same principles apply. They rarely will extend a nomination. Well, almost never will they if you're on maintained status. Would they consider a post-grad certificate higher than a bachelor's? Let's just see. That's a good question. Okay, let's see how they assess it. So if we go back to the education factors here, let's go to education. Okay, so they have here, it looks to me like diploma certificate. They don't distinguish. So trade certificate, diploma certificate, secondary school. They do not, it doesn't look to me like they distinguish it as being higher. So that's a great question. That's a really good question. They may very well consider it as at this level as 4 points, maybe. That's a great question. I don't have 100%, answer for that one. We'll have to take a look at that and see what, if any, instructions come out once things release on September 30th. Okay, let's see here. There's a lot of duplication. Let's see here. Okay, Nash says candidates will indicate a preferred stream on their expression of interest. Keep in mind that they may invite you to a different stream. That's the one. Yep. So they absolutely will and can invite you to a different stream. You kind of express what you're interested in. Okay. All right, let's see what's next. Let's see here. It looks like there's a lot of overlap. Benny says, if you don't meet the 69 points, you can't file expression of interest, or you can please answer. That's, yeah, there's no, sorry, I don't mean to confuse people. Just take a look at this. This is the human capital factors right here that total 69 points. That's just a portion of the total maximum 100 points. This is just for the maximum human capital. And then if we go down here to the economic factors, this is where the other remaining 31 are. Okay. So that's, I think maybe you're just a little bit confused there, Benny. Okay. I think we're just about done. We covered this, Fahad. Can you please elaborate on family relationship? I think they have added aunt and uncle, niece. That's correct. They have. Okay. So, 3 says, my LMIA was expired in May from BC. I applied in rural area, now on visitor status. Do they consider me as an outlander? Well, I guess they don't really inland or outland. You know, they just want to know if the work experience you gained was valid in Canada and if you have a job offer. Okay. Okay, Mohammed says, will I be eligible for AOS if I studied from Ontario and now I'm on a postgrad and working in Alberta? I also have family members who are citizens. Well, when it comes to the Alberta Opportunity Stream, you wouldn't be eligible. They have not indicated anything with respect to changing the eligibility requirements. So I would say no, you would not be. Only postgrad work permit holders who studied in Alberta. Yes, Kadar, hospitality stream will continue. And like I said, I suspect, hospitality stream, when I look at, like we looked at the, we had a little bit of a breakdown there with the processing and inventory. I'll show this one more time. It's a follow-up of Kadar's question here. But if you look here at the, let's go down here to, let's find the right one, hospitality, tourism and hospitality here. If you look at this, there's 392 that have been nominated. The total they can do is 660. And if you go down here, there's only 8 in the queue, theoretically. So what does that mean? I think that's where they're going to go. We'll see how it plays out. Oh, I keep pushing the wrong button there. Okay. Oh, my camera. Oh, there we go. Now it's focused back on me. All right, let's see what else. We're just about at the end, guys. Thanks for holding on. You guys that are continuing to post, I'm going to block you. If I don't answer your question, there's a reason I don't answer it. But when I have answered it and see your same question posted 100 times, like Alu here, I'm going to block you from the channel. I won't, but please don't do that. It takes me a long time to sift through the questions. Okay, Al Saida says, is there a requirement that the business should operate from a location, or can the business be home-based? No, it needs to have a location. It does. Okay, let's see what else here. I think I've kind of covered most of it, guys. It looks to me like I've covered pretty much everything. Okay. Oh, well, I'll pull this one up. This is from Vishwa. She says, which stream will I come under if I have 1 year experience in Edmonton? So remember, you still, when it comes to eligibility, those rules haven't changed. You can go and you can take a look and see what the AOS, Alberta Opportunity Stream eligibility is, accelerated tech, those kinds of things. But when it comes to down to the expression of interest points, people with work experience in Calgary and Edmonton or job offers, you're not going to get points for those. That's really what it comes down to. Olu says, AOS was non-express entry stream. Would this new EOI be EE stream or still non-EE stream? In most cases, We know the accelerated tech pathway is express entry, but AOS isn't. And so those rules won't, I don't see those changing at all. Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. I think we've hit the end of the line. Yeah, so Herman says it is so confusing that you can get expressions of interest with 6 months of work experience in Alberta, but still won't qualify since the APNP requires at least 12 months of work experience. Well, understand, Herman, that if you're a post-grad work permit holder and you're going through the AOS, you can qualify with 6 months. So you don't need the full 12 months if you've studied in Alberta and all the other requirements fit. Okay, I think we've covered, I think, everything here pretty much. Okay, Jan, I see you're talking about please explain employer support. It all comes down to the documentation. So the employer, there's a form that was created just recently to ensure that employers who are providing job offers to candidates under the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program that meet certain standards, because there was a lot of fraud going on within it. So when I say support, often in many instances, they have to, an employer, it's EAD employer, what is it? It's like an acknowledgement kind of form, and they have to provide information to show that they're actually operating in Alberta and that they have a certain, if they're publicly traded, they don't have as many obligations, but have to be willing to provide tax data so that they can be properly vetted. So that's really what it comes down to. It's a good thing you put it in caps, Jant. But it's not going to change. It's not going to be different than it was before. It's going to be very, very similar. That's what I want everybody to understand. Alberta didn't have time nor desire to revamp all of its existing programs. It just layered on the expression of interest on the front end to help them manage the intake of individuals. That's really what they've done. Not unlike other provinces. Let's see, is there anything else here? Okay. Yes, guys, I know there's a bunch of questions here, but I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Wow, it was one. This is one long. Igor was with me at the beginning, but he dropped off, but that was okay. It was good to have him here. Trust me, come September 30th, I will do complete walkthroughs of the portal. I know what it's going to be. And ultimately, I think you guys are going to be happy with what it is. And, I'm just kudos to the province for turning around something as quickly as they did. And I think this is the most fair system that they could have done in order to, to manage the high intake of people looking to immigrate to Alberta or remain and transition it from a worker to permanent residence. So thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. It was great to have you here. Hopefully this was helpful. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. If I am going to do another live, which every Wednesday at 10 a.m. we do live Q&As, I'll have more information, because guess what's going to happen before on like this Wednesday, tomorrow, we'll do a live Q&A, but a week from Wednesday. So I'll be back at this tomorrow answering your questions. But when it comes to next Wednesday, we'll have a whole lot more information to talk about, and I'll probably go live before then. All right. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. Take care and have a wonderful evening.